Hi everyone, I am Verda, I'm from Turkey, and today I will be representing my organization. It's called Doğruluk Payı, and I can translate it as share of truth. It translates like that from Turkish. And we are the first political fact-checking organization in Turkey. So I have to first warn you that it's also hard to understand and explain what's going on in my country, even in my own language, and even that I was born and raised in Turkey and I have been living there throughout my whole life. So it will be even harder to try to do that in English, but I will try my best and I hope you will like it. So, as I said, we are the first political fact-checking organization, and we were established in 2014. And it's by no coincidence that we were actually established at that particular year, because in 2013, maybe some of you recall, we had huge protests, the Gezi Parkı protests. We were already aware that something was going on in our country in terms of the politics and the political figure in rule. But after that year, after the protests, actually our concerns peaked because we came into realization that media was not doing what it was supposed to be doing. There were huge protests where thousands of people were gathering and a lot of people were killed, a lot of people were detained, a lot of people were imprisoned and they were wanted, but most of the journalists were not reporting from the field, and they were not giving voice to the opposition and the demands of the protesters. So we understood that there was a growing control, a government control over the media, and someone was supposed to bear that responsibility to fill that gap. So starting from 2013, civil society was given greater responsibility in Turkey to fill that gap, and my organization is one of them. So in short, as we have been talking in the previous panels as well, we are working to combat with fake news and misinformation in our country, and we do that by fact-checking the political statements of the political actors, but that's not the only thing that we're doing. I will be explaining that later on. And in the long run, we want the political communication in general and the politics and politicians and the policies to be more responsible, to be more accountable and transparent. It might be heard as if it's a utopia for Turkey, we'll see, but that's what we are aiming for. And we have also in the previous panels been talking about that it's a global trend, the monsters of misinformation and fake news, but I would say, and I would suggest by fact that maybe Turkey is the country that is exposed to those threats the most, because that's what data is telling us. According to the Reuters Digital News Report 2018, Turkey is the leading country in terms of those that declared that they have been exposed to completely made-up news over the last days, over the last week. So I would say that it's even more important in my country to be tackling with such issue. So as I said, we are basically fact-checking the political statements by the political actors, and we do that so by using reliable and open source. And we basically fact-check the statement, and we are writing analysis on them, and we are sharing them through our website and social media accounts. When we were first established in 2014, we had an election coming up in 2 months, only in 2 months. So we really were forced to be engaged really quickly. But it took us time to actually spread our voice, because at that time, since civil society movements in Turkey were just recently established, we didn't had much how can I say, ability to shape the public opinion. But the most important part was that we were objective. We were giving voice to all of the parts in the political realm, and people were confused. They were sending us messages, or they would comment on our Facebook like, but who are you supporting? And we all the time had to respond them, we are not supporting anyone. We are working to give voice to all of the political parties so that us, the general public, can give a vote in a political communication environment that is only based on true information and data. But they would insist, but so are you pro-Erdogan or are you criticizing Erdogan? I would say they are right, because at the very same day we would have contents where we would be falsifying Erdogan, where we would be also verifying him. So people were questioning our reliability, but it took us time to build that trust, and I think I understand that, and it was really important for us. So besides doing just political fact-checkings, to be able to engage more with the public, we also incorporated some visual content to our website. This is the methodology that we use. I won't be going much into detail about it, but I put it as an example, and it's dated from 2014, I think, and the president had a statement stating that Istanbul is the most clean city in the world. I don't know if any of you have ever visited Istanbul. It's not even close. So probably it's again a familiar methodology of fact-checking according to the statement, whether if it's false or true, and whether if it has manipulative or exaggerated content. We give a score to the statement, and then according to the score we give it a color. As I said, we had to incorporate more visual content so that we would be reaching to a more audience, and we would be having a more impact. So we started to do some infographics, and we gave importance on the first hand to important subjects where most of the fake news and misinformation had been disseminating. And that's why, for example, we used an infographic regarding the status of the Syrian refugees in Turkey, because at that time, and still continuing, there were a lot of misinformation regarding the Syrians that had refuge in Turkey. A year later, we had another elections. Actually, since the year that I started voting, I have been voting every year, and sometimes 2 times a year. So I think we are getting used to it now. And it was from 2015, we actually had an election, and I was supposed to say 2, because we had a re-election by then as well. And maybe you know it already, that we are going to be re-electing the local elections in Istanbul again next month. So at that time, we saw that the ruling party lost the majority of the votes. So they asked for a re-election, and it was again our time to increase our impact. So we added another format to our website, Hükümetre. It's like a government meter. We track the promises of the government that was supposed to be done by that year, and we came into conclusion that it was only 30% of the promises that the ruling party have given that they actually realized in time. We don't know if it had an impact or not, but they lost the majority of the votes, and in between the 2 elections, we increased a lot of followers and a lot of, for example, views on our website. This is an example from the government meter. And then next year, we had another election in 2017. This time, we went to a referendum to change our political system from parliamentary democracy to presidency, and we all know that how it ended. But at that time, we realized that we wouldn't just rely on giving and spreading our message just on written articles. So we went into YouTube business and we started to do informative small video clips, and there are some examples also from further infographics and videos that we used. And the recent elections. So I want to go into detail a little about it and how we as Doğruluk Payı, we covered it. So how can I? It was supposed to play, but okay. So on 31st of March, we had a local election, and for the first time, after 1994, the ruling party lost Istanbul. And it was only after 16 days that the opposition candidate who actually won was given the official duty to start his rule, because the ruling party, they tried to block the results by using several other reasons. They would say that this was the elections with the most invalid votes, but we fact-checked that. It was actually one of the least. They would say that there are a lot of there were a lot of electoral boards that were not actually supposed to be working. We fact-checked that. It's not true. So they tried to use a lot of different points to legitimize the re-election process, and they ended up doing it. So we will be re-electing in a month at 23rd of June. And in the meantime, we gave all of our focus to the local elections. We tried to do comparative analysis of the different promises by the candidates. We also tried to understand why it mattered that much for the ruling party and for Erdogan to lose Istanbul. And we did some analysis of it, and we show to the general public that in terms of the percentage of local municipalities as a share of the GDP, and also the percentage of population to be ruled by the opposition party, it increased a lot. So we believe that that's the actual reason that the ruling party went for a re-election, because they don't want to lose Istanbul. And now we are still working on this local elections. We are only focused on this. And I want to also show, lastly, where we ended up in 5 years. Now we are an organization that have written more than 1,000 analyses. We have more than 350 articles published on our website. We have more than 100,000 followers on our social media accounts. And in terms of contributing to the overall change in the Turkish society and Turkish politics, I think we still have more way to go, and we need more collaboration between politicians, academia, and civil society, but we will continue to do what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.